measuring device that actually measures the student's presence, and then you would have an input device for the student to put input answers, whether they be, you know, like for like a lot of courses it could be writing, or it could be typing, or it could be verbal even, because there's a lot of technologies out there. I mean, basically what I'm getting at is the fact that there are a lot of technologies either out there or are very close to being developed that allows us to input data and extract data from computers, you know, that can then be used, like within a computer itself could determine whether or not the student's right or wrong. So like if you have like a homework problem, like let's say you start off the lecture, the professor gives some talking and then he poses a couple of problems right there during the lecture. What you could do is then you could, you know, either type it out, write it out, or say it out. You know, if you say it, it could transcribe it. If you write it, it could, you know, if you write it, it could turn it into text again, and it would be able to compare or contrast those inputs with a database of potential possible right answers or wrong answers even. It could tell you, you know, come back and say, oh, no, it's not this, but your thinking was probably this, and that's how you got to this. Or what you could have is still you could do that, and if the computers aren't quite up to par with answering the questions themselves, you could have a body of people that you pay to actually correct the answers. So that's the basic use of the high technology, is that is in the administration of the courses. So what I'm thinking is that we will have courses that you know, you may only have one professor or a limited number of people doing the actual educating of the course, but they could do it to thousands of students. Not much different than the current online system of doing things. But that's the first thing I see in the future of education that's important. The second one is kind of new though. It's testing and placement via learning styles and capacities. So what this one means is, what I'm envisioning here is that, like, let's say you have a freshman, I don't know, business class, business administration 101, or business communication 101. So here's business communication 101, but we have different people of different learning styles. We have some that are more verbal or auditory or, you know, visual, kind of going back to what I was talking about before, but there are these different learning styles, and we can test people and we can classify them into the various groups, and then we can strongly suggest that they take a version of the course that's geared towards that learning or thinking style. And then we can also test them on their capacities. So basically we could start them off at, like, what do they know? In general, we probably want people to start at the bottom and work their way up, but you could start them, you know, you could test for that too, like what level they're at. And then B, more important, I think, is the speed, because the actual course will go at a certain speed, and, you know, part of that is self-determined. Like you could, like, let's say that there's like 50 lectures in a course, or 10 lectures in a course that have the homework and everything with them and everything, and you can just, you know, you could say I want to get through all 10 of them in a day, which probably is impossible, or in a week or a month or whatever. But what I mean by the speed is the speed at which the professor, I guess, goes from one concept to the next, like during the lecture, and how deep and in depth he goes. So you could test for someone's capacity, I guess, for speed or depth that they are capable of, and then you could, you know, strongly again suggest that they be placed in a course that corresponds to that level. So I guess the big thing is capacity of the student and the thinking or learning style of the student would be the two big things that we would be testing for, with the potential of, you know, at least initially, the current level that the student's at. But I hope that won't be a problem in the future, actually. That will be a difficulty, because people will just start at the bottom and then work their way up. The third thing, I think, and this is another one that's kind of a newbie, and that's quality control courses. So, you know, the status quo is that, you know, you once you get tenure, there's really nothing that you can say or do within, you know, the realm of what a normal professor might say or do that can get you, you know, fired or even really critiqued. I mean, as long as you're teaching them something about, you know, business administration, it doesn't have to correspond with, you know, what the later courses even say that much, or the earlier courses say. That you're fine if you're tenured. You can just go ahead and do that. Or, you know, not necessarily even tenured versus not tenured, but just in general, there's a difficulty in saying, is whatever this educator teaching the students, is it either, you know, do they know what's coming, like what beforehand, like do they know coming into the course everything that they need to? Do they have all the tools in their box so that they can learn effectively? Or, you know, do they have, you know, is the course, you know, is it taught in a quality way? for the students to learn? It's difficult to say. So what I propose here, or even the material, is it rigorous enough or not rigorous enough? So what I propose here is that what we do is we have a body of 10 professors, or 10, I guess you could say, 10 experts in the field of whatever it is, and 10 students that have a level, right up to what we are hoping for in that course. In the future, we will know exactly, hopefully, because they will have gone through all the material up to that level of education, and then we'll be able to use like 10 of them. But anyways, so you'll have 10 professors and 10 students, and the 10 professors will sit down and design the course according to the previous material that's been learned, and with the material that we want to learn in the future, and looking at, I guess, the big stream of knowledge, they can say, okay, this looks like an appropriate course. So we are going to make a course on statistical analysis, or on quality control processes for so that people after they take this course, they should be able to go right into IBM's first level quality control engineer job, pretty much. So what they could do is they would know that, they would know what's needed to be known, and they would know the courses that would have to tie in to get you to that level, and then they could make a course based off that. Those 10 people would make that course, and they would critique it, and they would hopefully, another thing that's important is maybe maybe you could have one from each of the other 2 learning styles, but then the other 8 would all be people from that same learning style, so they could make it appropriate to the learning style. And then you would have students, and the students would all be of that learning style too, or that thinking style, and from previous testing, and they would take the course with the professor, and they would offer all their suggestions and stuff. So like, what did they know, what did they not know from what they came in with, and then you could basically use that to refigure the course and go back and tweak the whole course, or maybe you could go lecture by lecture actually. So the professors make the lecture, or the professionals make the lecture, and then the students take it. And they just do that course or lecture by lecture, or division point by division point, until the course is done, and that's how you make the course. So that brings me to my third point. So who's going to be doing the actual educating, or who's going to be doing the lecturing? I said entertaining educator, and what I mean by that is you need to have an educating person, or entertaining person, or a person that's of the same learning style again, hopefully, or maybe not necessarily. Maybe all people that are of some certain learning styles in general are very boring, even to those people of that learning style. So maybe it's not a good idea. I haven't decided for certain on that one way or the other, but I don't think I will anyways. But whoever it is that would do something with this idea that I have would have to probably decide on that. So anyway, so the educator would have to be someone that's at least very good at communicating, and probably communicating specifically to the learning style or thinking style of the students that are taking that course. Wouldn't have to necessarily be an expert in the field, probably maybe some background, but in general just someone that's good at communicating, good at educating, someone that's not difficult to look at, probably. So I guess that's the fourth one. And the other thing in addition to that is not necessarily the educator themselves, but the way they present it should be entertaining, should be educational, should be engaging, and it should keep people's interest. Not necessarily entertaining, but it keeps their interest. So when I say entertaining, probably is not exactly what I mean, but I think it's maybe going a little too far. But anyways, you get the gist of what I mean by number 4, and that is having someone that's very good at communicating and that can get the communication job done well. And again, I guess the kind of the difference here with the current system is that it doesn't even have to be someone with a PhD or that's an expert in that field. So that brings me to the 5th one. The homework will be done in class with the final project. So this one kind of ties in, I guess, with the use of the high technology that we talked about earlier. Or I did talk about earlier. Anyway, so you would have like a computer screen, and during the course itself, or during the lecture itself, the professor might ask questions, and then they might have multiple choice, and then the answers would pop up on the screen, and the student would have to decide. Or maybe it's writing, maybe it's writing a couple of sentences, or correcting this or that, or whatever the case might be. And that's what would be required of the student during the lecture, to A, show that the student is engaged and learning, and B, it would be exercises to help the student better. Maybe it's do this math problem so that the student can then do the math problem outside the course. So it would actually be, like, so do the math problem, and then you do it, you write it out, you solve it. And another good thing with this is it would introduce us to a lot of, like, the technology that's actually in use in a lot of the different disciplines out there. So you would actually maybe use some marketing technology, or like some marketing information, or not information, some marketing software, or like math software, to actually you'd use that to make your answers, and you would learn how to use it. So you would basically, like let's say, like the marketing professor might say, ask some maybe basic marketing questions, but then maybe maybe at the end of the lecture he might have you do